Hey everyone, Derek here from WayScript. In this one, let's take a look at how we can build a fully functional ticket management system all inside the WayScript platform. Starting off, let's take a look at the finished product of what we're working on. What we have is a form where we can create a ticket for our management system. So let's say something like MailChimp module broken and need to fix ASAP as the description, which is probably super helpful to the engineering team. So we'll submit that ticket, and what that will do is give us a Slack notification where a new ticket has been created to my Slack workspace. Then, once it finishes submitting, we go back to our dashboard where that ticket is displayed. If we have more than one ticket, they'll all be displayed here. Once it's time to work on this ticket, what we can do is click on Learn More about the individual ticket. This will give us a page where we can review the ticket and then close it if it's no longer an issue. So let's say that I've fixed the MailChimp module and it's no longer broken. I can click on Close, and that will clean up my dashboard so I have no more tickets left. Giving it a few seconds to submit, we should land on our dashboard where we can go and add another ticket if we need to. So repeating the cycle, we can just click on the icon and that'll take us to the Create Ticket form. Awesome, so let's get started building this. I've broken up this tutorial in a couple pieces so you can click around and just get the information that you need. Or you can follow along completely and build the whole thing from scratch with me. Getting started, let's take a look at how we can create the Create Ticket page. Starting out, what we'll do is create a new script in your WayScript account. You can call it whatever you want. I'll call mine Ticket Management System, and then I'll click on Create. What this will do is give us access to the WayScript editor, and this is where we'll build all the logic for our program here. We already know that there's multiple steps in the script, and what we can do is utilize the functions to create each of those steps. So let's go ahead and create 4 functions. We have our main and function 1, 2, and 3. We'll go ahead and rename these. So main will be our dashboard. Function 1 will be our create tickets. Function 2 can be our review tickets. And then we'll just name function 3 as helper. Now that we have our functions, let's go ahead and create our create ticket function. Starting out, we know that we want the user to have access to this function via a URL. And we can get that URL by using the HTTP trigger. This gives us a provided URL over here to the left that we can change the endpoint on. We'll make this one create ticket. That way we can leave the default, just the program id.wayscript.io as our dashboard. Since we want to return content to the user whenever they go to this HTTP trigger, we can use an HTTP response. We'll fill this response with the content that we want to return, which we can create now. The content that we want to return is HTML. Once we have this HTML, we can go down to the response and pull this default HTML code in. Now let's go up and edit our HTML. What I'll do is go to our GitHub and see this step in the README section, and this is linked below, and we're looking for number 4. We'll go up and grab number 4. That way we don't have to type this out, and I'll just copy and paste this in. Then I'll explain everything as we go through. So what we're doing in this HTML file is we're creating HTML, we're adding style elements, and we already know that the styling wasn't great on our create ticket page, so feel free to edit these. Then what we need to do is we need to provide the submission link as a variable before this module. This submission link will be the URL that the user goes to when they submit this form. An important thing to note here is that when a user submits this form, we're passing 2 values to that submission link. These values are the description and the ticket title. You can add more values or take these away if you want to, but this is how we'll read in entries into a database from this form. The flow will be a user submits this form, then we'll pass these entries to Python logic to save them to a database. Now that we've gone through this, let's go ahead and finalize this submission link. We'll close the editor and create that variable. We know we needed to create it because this pill is red. So there's no value that this pill is referring to. We can change that by creating a variable with that name above it. And this will just be the link that we want the user to go to whenever they submit that form. In my example, I'm sending the user to the home page, so I'll use that link here. To get a link, we can utilize that HTTP trigger again, but this time, let's build it out for the home page. So we'll create that HTTP trigger, we'll copy this link, and then we'll paste that link into this create variable module. Now that this submission link has a value, our HTML should have a colored pill, which it does. We see that the color here has changed to blue, and that's because it's a string or a URL specifically in this case. Different colors signify different data types within WayScript, so we can easily view pills to see what type of data type that pill is. Awesome. So we have our HTML, we're returning it to the user, and we have that form that will send the user back to our main dashboard. Continuing on, when a user submits that form, we need to pass this information from this form to a second URL. To do that, we can use query parameters that have the same names as these HTML labels. So we see this first one is the second one is description, and the first one is ticket title. We'll go in and say ticket title. We'll leave the default value blank, and then we'll say description. What this does is whenever a user submits that form and they're redirected to this home page, these values will be filled. However, there's two different scenarios when viewing this home page. One is a user creates that ticket, so they're coming from the create ticket page, or they're just visiting the URL without submitting a ticket beforehand. What we can do is create conditional logic. If a user submitted a ticket, that means these query parameters will have values. And conditionally, what we can do is if these variables have a value, we can use an AND condition or an OR condition, depending on what you want to do. So description and ticket title have a value. Then we can input custom logic to write that ticket to the database. So just to review, a ticket is created, so this query parameter has a value. We conditionally say if it has a value, then add that ticket to the database. If you're just viewing it without creating a ticket before, we'll go down, we'll trigger our program, the else will be true, and then we can create the HTML and the HTTP response to return to the user without creating the new ticket. If a user creates that ticket though, we still get that HTML and the HTTP response. We just go down this side of the if tree as true. With this HTML and HTTP response, we'll just go ahead and pull that HTML code into the response. Now let's take a look at how we can build this conditional logic so when a user submits a ticket, we can write that to our database. We'll click on that Python step and click Open Editor. Then we can go and view this GitHub repository and look for number one. Number one is this conditionally add to database. So we'll copy this and paste it in. Sweet. So let's talk through this. What we're doing is we're creating a Python variable that is equal to the WayScript variable of ticket title. This variable's dictionary is just how we reference the variables that we store on WayScript. Since this is a dictionary, you can use other methods like get, or you could just reference it by the key like how I'm doing in this one. I'll just leave it as the key for right now. Then we're importing from TinyDB. We're importing the libraries that we need. TinyDB is just the database that we can use to store these entries. It's backed by a JSON file that we still need to create, and then we can insert into the DB these values. We're inserting the ticket from that form, the description from that form as well, and then we're hard coding in a status of open. We're doing this because we already know that our if statement is true. So a new ticket needs to be created, and we'll just open all new tickets with that status of open by default. Okay, that was a lot going on, but we now have two new objectives that we need to do since that Python step needs a library that isn't already imported on WayScript by default, and we need that file. Let's take a look at how we can import libraries that aren't installed by default already. What we can do is open up our file manager, and under the name of your script, ticket management system, if you've imported a Python step, you should have a requirements.txt file created automatically for you. Here you can just put the libraries that you need to use and install whenever you run your Python code. For me, that's just TinyDB. Some modules are installed by default already, so you don't have to worry about them. But if you get a module not found error, then that's a great first step to do. Just go and add it to your requirements.txt. Awesome, one objective down. Now let's go and add that db.json file so we have something to write to. We can do that by clicking the three dots to the right of your script name, then select New File, and we can create the file from here. Now, our relative reference in our Python script will have a file to read to and to write, that db.json that we just created. With WayScript, it's easy to connect different services together using their pre-built modules. Each of these modules are just an API that we built a visual interface for, and you can use very accessibly. Now, let's take a look at how we can create a Slack notification when a new ticket is created. To do this, it's very simple, and all we have to do is within our true side of our if statement, so a new ticket was created from our create tickets interface, we can pull in a Slack module. I've already authorized Slack on my account using OAuth, but if you haven't, then you'll have to click Add Account. That will take you to the OAuth authorization where you can accept the WayScript connection. Now, all we have to do is say new ticket created, and we can choose the channel that we want the Slack bot to write to. I'll just write mine to the general channel. Then there's other settings that we can choose to use if we want to or not. We can create a bot name, and then we can get back outputs if we want them too. I don't want to do any of this for this tutorial, so I'll just leave these as the default, off, and blank. With this one step, we've automatically integrated two different services together to automate our workflow. Continuing on with the logic of our script, we now have the create ticket functionality pretty much complete. But our next step is to render all of these created tickets to the user when they visit this URL. Since we want to pass these created tickets to the user, regardless if this if statement is true, we need the logic outside of our if statement. So we'll add a Python module here. Now we'll open up this editor. We'll go back to GitHub, and we'll see that this logic is number 2. Render all open tickets from DB on homepage. We'll take this, and I'll copy this code, and then I'll explain it when I paste it. So what we're doing is we're importing those libraries, we're connecting to the database, and with TinyDB, there's a method that we can use to search the database. We're applying this method to search for all open tickets. And then for each ticket, we're just creating a string of HTML that we can pass back to our HTML module from our Python logic. All of that is a little confusing, but in reality, all we're doing is creating an HTML element for each ticket, and then we'll write that back to the HTML module. So we can close that editor. We'll open up this HTML module, and then we'll go and grab the code for this HTML module labeled as number 3. Copying this and pasting it in. We see that we have a few red pills that we'll need to take care of, but all we're doing is passing that HTML and this pill inside of an HTML doc that has Bootstrap installed. All of this is just Bootstrap, and all of this is just standard HTML. So we need to create this submit link so this pill isn't red, and this HTML is red right now, but that's just because that HTML variable hasn't been created since this Python step hasn't ran. So it's nothing for us to worry about. Let's go ahead and create a variable that will change this submit link pill back to blue. So we have submit link, and this will just be the link for this create tickets. You can dive into the HTML if you want to. But all we're doing is giving the user a link for this create tickets within the HTML. Now, that pill should be blue because it now has a reference variable to it. Refreshing this, we now see it's blue. Let's take a quick break and look at our completed create ticket and dashboard views. We'll start off by creating a ticket. That way our dashboard has something on it. So when we go, we get this create ticket view, and we'll say something like issues with Java. Just use my autofills, and then we'll submit. We know upon submit that this will take us back to the home page. We get that Slack notification down in the bottom right corner, which just comes from my Slack app. And now we should be able to view it on the home page here. So far, we have this create ticket and we have this dashboard set up. Now we need to be able to click this learn more button to go and review an issue. We can build that function under our review tickets function. Starting off, this needs to be a web page as well. So we'll use an HTTP trigger and a response like how we have in all the previous ones. We'll use some HTML. And what needs to happen is we need to copy and paste some logic into this HTML. We see that it's number 6 in our GitHub. So I'll copy this and paste it in to the HTML right here. And we see that we need a couple things. We need an HTML string and a submit link. The submit link is just like how we have in the previous ones, where we'll create a variable and define the submit link. And then this HTML string will be from a Python module. Let's go ahead and create that variable. So submit link equals, and we'll leave this as an empty string. This submit link should take us back to the dashboard. So we'll go and copy that endpoint and paste it here. Now we need a Python module. This Python module will just build our HTML for us using the query parameters of this string that we're going to pass from this HTML document over here on our dashboard. That sounds complex, but all we're doing is taking in a title from here. So we'll put in a query parameter, a title. Then with that title, we'll go into this Python and query the database of the title to get back all the HTML that we need for this review ticket. We'll talk through all of that again here in a second so you know what's going on. But walking through this Python very quickly, we're getting that title from our query parameter. We're querying the database for that title. We're querying the database for every ticket that has that title. And then we're returning HTML back so we can pass that to the HTML module located here. Actually, I made a mistake here. On this create variable, since the action link, the submit link, should be closing the ticket, we'll just go ahead and build out our helper function. This link will be the one that we need to put in into our create variable. Having that fixed and our Python module in place, now we just need to take in the query parameter, a title, which we are, from this HTML. Let's verify that we're doing that. So it's in our Python logic, and we see that the HTML string that we're creating is review ticket and giving a query parameter a title. We'll make sure that our URL is the same. So review ticket. This should be working. And now we'll just turn it on. We'll turn this one on too. And we need one last bit of Python logic for this one. So what's going on in our application, we'll refresh this, is we just constructed a way to review the ticket. To review a ticket, we need to click on Learn More on the individual ticket. And that should take us to a page where that ticket is displayed and we have an option to close it, which is what we get. We also have this home option here. Now all we need is whenever a user clicks this close button, we need to actually go and change our database so the status is closed. We can do that with this helper function here. We'll open the editor, and this time we'll look at our diagram, and it's number 7. And this is our code. Pasting it in at the bottom, talking to it, we're importing the libraries, and we're just updating our DB where the ticket is the same as the title that we're passing. And we're updating that status to closed. Closing the editor. Now, when we click on close this ticket, we should go back to the home page where no tickets are displayed, which is exactly what we get. I know this was a longer tutorial, but I hope it shows you just how powerful WayScript is. We can build very in-depth applications with pre-built tools that help speed up the workflow. Without WayScript, we'd have to build this in a framework and then spend time configuring it and setting it up. Instead, we can just build it all on WayScript, know that it's managed by WayScript, and we don't have to worry about it. And anyone on our team can come in, make changes, and save them. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know and we'll help you out. Until next time.